Hickok here again. Y'all been asking me for a long time to do something on technique, stance, grip, sight picture, trigger control, all those kinds of things, which I take as a compliment because you must think I'm doing something right. Maybe I am. I may do it, may not do it like everybody else, but I guess part of the time I'm at least getting it right. So I'm going to try to do some things in some relatively short videos, I think, that will maybe at least inform you as to what I do. All right, and I know a little bit. I know enough to be dangerous. Obviously, I have read a few things about shooting stance and grip and all those sorts of things, but I tend to do things that feel good for me, and I adapt from that. I may use a Weaver stance primarily, but mine I know is modified. So anyway, I'm going to try to give you some tips, techniques that I use that work for me without, again, being a Clint Smith wannabe or Jeff Cooper wannabe. I'm just going to show you what works for me primarily and what little I know about some of these things that work for other people. Okay? Please don't pick me apart. There are probably people, Rob Latham, who will just fall over and throw his beer at the ceiling if he sees me doing this. But if you want really specifics on maybe some of the techniques that the top shooters in the country use, I'm sure they have videos and you can find that information. But let me give you what works for me in some short segments here. All right, I'm going to start with stance. Okay, stance in this video. We've got a couple, 3 targets out here at fairly close range. I'm not going to do a whole lot of shooting. I just want to focus on how I stand, the stance I use most of the time, and the main stance that a lot of other shooters use. All right, the 2 primary stances are the isosceles and the Weaver stance, and there's kind of a third modified Weaver or Chapman stance. I think it's termed by a lot of people, and that's probably what I use most of the time. So I'm going to first give you just a quick overview of how these kind of look. All right, now I'm not telling most of you anything, but here goes. In the isosceles stance, you square yourself up with the target. Okay, my feet are kind of square, about shoulder width apart, and there are my targets right down range. All right, so that's where the way I stand. And then my body, now I don't use this stance, to tell you the truth, but I kind of know how it's supposed to be, I think. So we have a clear gun here. No mag, okay? So you stand like this with your gun and you form a triangle, hence isosceles, okay? So it's kind of like that, and you lean forward. As I understand, your hips and your shoulders are supposed to be forward of your feet. All right? Now that feels a little bit awkward to me because I don't really use it. And as I understand, your knees are supposed to be bent slightly. It gives you a pretty good feel, pretty good foundation. I mean, I feel pretty good. I can shoot this way, I think. I just tend not to use it. I use the Weaver stance, but it feels all right. This is a stance that competitors use a lot. Gives them a lot of control. You're kind of on a turret from the waist up, like a tank or something. You want to shoot over there, you spin, just like that. So you're not much shuffling your feet around to actually change position. Boom, 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 boom. That kind of action. But you got pretty good stability, and feels pretty good, which is a key. In any stance, you want to have stability, and you want to feel pretty comfortable with it. Of course, if you practice it, you'll gradually feel comfortable with it. Like I don't feel real comfortable in this position because I never use it. Okay, but that's kind of the position. Again, some of the major competitors would look at me maybe and laugh, but I think that's pretty close. All right? And some really get down low like that. And others not so much. You don't want to be back like that. Yeah. Okay? This gives you a lot of control over the handgun. It really does. Now, if you're trying to pick off a grape or a tree frog at 500 yards with one shot, I mean, you might stand back and lean back and, pow, you got him or you missed him. That's a different type of shooting than what most people who use the isosceles for are trying to do. It's really popular among competitors, and I think even in some police circles. It keeps your vest in the front of you, and military, same thing. So you're not standing sideways, and you got good protection with your vest. So there are a lot of applications for that stance. All right, the isosceles. Now, the stance that a lot of people use is the classic Weaver stance. Now, in the Weaver, your feet are not, shoulder width apart like that, squared up with the targets. If you're strong, if you're right-handed, as I am, your strong hand, right foot is diagonal. So you're in a position kind of where if someone said they're going to come up and try to push you over, you say, oh, no, you're not. I mean, that's what you would do, isn't it? You get your feet like that to where you'd be hard to move. And so that's shoulder width apart, but your right foot is back a little bit. If I were left-handed, it'd be just the opposite. I'd be shooting, like that. Okay. So my right foot's back a little bit, like that. Consequently, that turns my body. My right shoulder's back, and so it's more of this kind of look. All right. Now I think in the classic Weaver stance, this elbow is bent, and a lot of trainers actually teach that. Pow, 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 pow. You're flexible. Your arm takes some of that recoil, some of that punishment. Okay. And that's pretty much it. Now, let me see if I can assume the position here. Elbow bent, eye on the target. That's kind of the basics of it. Now, some people will have their hand down, their face down a little further. Some will have it extended like this. Some might have it even back here. Just depends. Me, I use a modified Weaver, sometimes called the Chapman. I pretty much lock this elbow. I try to. Sometimes I forget. And then this is what I use. Now I use my left eye, so I'm even stranger still. So I'm over here and get my left eye on it. Okay? Just like that. So and that's what this is really about. So many of you have asked for me to kind of show you what I do and my techniques. So for whatever it's worth, that's the way I sight a gun. I get comfortable with my feet, got shoulder width apart, diagonal to the target, bang, like that. That's me. Pow. Pow. That's the way I shoot. If I'm shooting at 200 yards, pretty much the same thing. I'm sighted in out there, click, bang. Okay. If I'm trying to shoot steel targets out here very quickly, same thing. Boom, 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 boom. That's what I use. Modified Weaver stance. Okay. Again, I'm not an expert in these stances, but that's pretty much the difference. You got the isosceles and you got the Weaver. And like that, boom. Now I don't bend my knees that much. They say though, somebody's shooting at you, you tend to do that. And that's the other thing. No matter what stance you use, they're all different reasons to be shooting. If you're on a target range, plinking and stuff, that's one thing. At your own leisure. If you're in a shooting match and you're trying to shoot as fast as you can, that might change things for you. Somebody's shooting at you, a lot of that might go out the window. You might be behind a car, you might be in some bushes, you might be in a tree. If you're in the military, you might be hiding behind a rock, you might be on top of a tank, I don't know. So position could go out the window, obviously, in certain situations, which then it comes down to other things we'll talk about in some of the other videos. Trigger control, sight picture, and all that. But anyway, basic stance, that's kind of it. Isosceles, Weaver, boom. Again, I use the Weaver modified because I lock this arm. Boom. Okay. Let's take a couple of shots just to show you. I don't know why it works. All right. What I'm going to do first is I'm actually going to get in that isosceles position. My cameraman's going to kind of circle around here, and I'm not going to make any phenomenal shots or anything, but I'm just going to do a little realistic gun handling here. All right. So let's reholster. Okay, now for people who use the isosceles, they would kind of get ready. Let's say they're in a shooting match. They get ready to shoot. They get like this and pull it out. be kind of it. And you just kind of stand up and there you go, reholster. Now, from the Weaver, same thing. I'm a whole lot more comfortable with this Weaver stance. I just feel a lot better. And I'm kind of in position, my gun's back here. I just like it better. So I would do this. And they both work, right? No problem. Both work. We're clear. So the two main stances, as I say, and as many of you already know, the isosceles and the Weaver. I use kind of the Weaver modified. It really, I think, comes down to mostly what you do with this elbow. You know, I like to lock it. You know, other people don't. The Weaver, by the way, is named after Jack Weaver, and since so many people use it, you might be interested to know that he just died recently. He died in April of this year. He used to shoot in the leather slap matches with Jeff Cooper, no less, out in Big Bear, California. They started this IPSC and this competitive pistol, practical pistol competitions, you know, to simulate reality. The pistol competition has been going on forever, of course. Well, up until then, you know, the guys would, as I understand, again, I'm not an expert on that either, but they would draw and they would draw and shoot, bang, you know, and they wouldn't even sight it all the time. And they would have competitions, a fast draw and hitting practical type targets and things. And Weaver got the bright idea of using kind of a different stance in both hands. Instead of one hand, up until then, people mostly shot a pistol with one hand, which probably goes back to where you need to have a hand on that horse, didn't you? You're either up on the horse or you're making sure the horse doesn't take off when he hears that pistol shot, right? I think the military taught that up until, I don't know, early part of the 1900s. So, or on up into maybe 1930s and 40s, I don't know. Whenever they quit using horses at all. But, so he got the idea of getting the other hand into it, and so he would pull the pistol, put it in the hand, and then bang, bang, bang. Much more control, and was still quick as well. And I think he won the championship like the first year he started doing that. And Cooper saw how well that was working for him. Cooper adopted it. I think a lot of people believe that was Jeff Cooper that came up with it, but as I understand it was actually Jack Weaver. And then Cooper adopted it, thought it was great, and made that a part of his modern pistol technique that he taught for so many decades, actually. So, the Weaver stance, the reason it's so popular is it works so well. And it feels really good for most people, okay? Hopefully that answers, you know, most of what questions you might have about stance and all that. Nothing complicated, you know, it's just almost basic, you know, just the thing that feels the most comfortable, really. You stand kind of diagonal like that with a pistol, it feels good, bang, right on target. You know, I mean, I like to think, maybe it's because I've been doing it so long, but if I'd never touched a pistol and someone said, pull that thing out with two hands and hold it and take a shot, however it feels the best, and you know, I almost feel like this is what it would be, you know, just kind of stand diagonally, pull the pistol out, get a hold of it with one hand, and that's what you want to do. You want to grab it like you're going to shoot with one hand, and then put the other hand on it, and we'll talk about that in the grip tape, but bang, ready to go. All right, so isosceles, Weaver modified, or the Chapman stance, that's pretty much it. Now a lot of young people, I think use the isosceles. So I'm not telling you the Weaver's the only way to go. You got to kind of get comfortable. Try both of them. You know, see if that feels good to you. See if that feels good to you. Try them on the range. If you do competition of any kind, you probably already come to a conclusion on that. Okay, so I'm mainly talking to people just now trying to work all this out. So hopefully that's of some help, and we'll see y'all later.